Between 1500 and 1800, the Spanish Empire extracted from the Americas something that had never happened before in human history: 150,000 metric tons of silver, hundreds of tons of gold, emeralds, pearls, and artifacts representing the looted wealth of the Aztec, Inca, and Maya civilizations. Every ounce of it was supposed to be declared, logged, manifested, taxed at 20% by the Spanish crown, a levy called the Royal Fifth. The Archive of the Indies in Seville contains 43,000 documents covering 300 years of colonial trade. The manifests are there. The cargo declarations are there. The official record of what Spain moved across the Atlantic is one of the most comprehensive commercial archives in human history. And historians who have spent careers studying it agree on one thing: the numbers don't add up. The declared treasure, what the manifests show, is significantly less than what the mines produced. The difference runs into the hundreds of tons of gold and silver, smuggled, hidden, declared under false weight, loaded onto ships and never recorded. Much of it made it to Spain, much of it didn't. And the ships that sank, the ones that went down in hurricanes, in battles, in storms off Florida and the Caribbean and the Pacific, carried not just what the manifests show, they carried what nobody was supposed to know about. Here is the full record of what's down there. The Spanish treasure fleet system, the flota, operated for over 200 years as the most ambitious logistical operation in history. Twice a year, 2 fleets departed Spain. The Flota de Nueva España, the New Spain Fleet, sailed to Veracruz in Mexico. The Flota de Tierra Firme, the mainland fleet, sailed to Portobello in Panama, where Peruvian silver was carried overland from the Pacific. Both fleets rendezvoused in Havana before the Atlantic crossing, typically in spring, to avoid hurricane season. Except when they didn't. And when they missed the weather window, the consequences were catastrophic. The official manifests, held at the Archive of the Indies, represent what merchants and mine operators declared to the Casa de Contratación, the Spanish trade authority in Seville. Every declaration carried the Royal Fifth, a 20% tax on all precious metals. The incentive to underreport was therefore enormous. Historians studying the archive have documented what they call the contraband problem. A 1992 legal finding in the Atocha salvage case specifically noted that 67 of the 350 silver ingots recovered from the wreck were not listed on the official manifest. Contraband. Not declared. Not taxed. The Smithsonian described the 1622 fleet as, quote, stuffed with contraband, illegally greasing the palms of Spanish merchants and officials alike. One wreck. 67 unmanifested silver ingots. The fleet carried dozens of ships. Hundreds of fleets sailed over 200 years. The gap between what the mines produced and what the manifests declare represents one of the largest undocumented treasure pools in history, and a significant portion of it is still on the ocean floor. September 1622. A fleet of 28 ships departed Havana. They were late, delayed by loading disputes and bureaucratic complications. Hurricane season had already begun. 2 days out of Havana, a storm struck. 8 ships went down. The most significant, the Nuestra Señora de Atocha, carrying the consolidated treasure of the New World for that year: silver ingots, gold bars, tobacco, indigo, copper, and contraband that wasn't on any manifest. Mel Fisher spent 16 years searching for it. In 1985, he found the motherlode: 24 tons of silver bullion, 125 gold bars, 1,200 pounds of silverware, uncut Colombian emeralds, and thousands of coins. Total recovered value, approximately $450 million. The manifest value of the Atocha's declared cargo, $500 million in modern terms. The problem: Fisher's recovery accounts for only a portion of what the manifest describes, and the manifest itself only accounts for a portion of what was loaded. The Atocha's sister ship, the Santa Margarita, sank in the same storm. It has been partially excavated. Researchers estimate tens of millions in material remains in the sand. And the 6 other ships from the 1622 fleet that went down that day have never been systematically excavated. All within a relatively confined area of the Florida Keys and the waters northwest of the Marquesas. All carrying declared cargo. All almost certainly carrying undeclared cargo on top. $3 trillion moved across an ocean over 300 years. The manifests don't match the mines. The ships that sank took both the declared treasure and the hidden treasure with them. Subscribe. Dead Man's Secrets goes this deep every single week. July 1715. The combined fleet of 11 ships departed Havana on July 24th, carrying the accumulated treasure of 2 years, delayed by the War of Spanish Succession, which had prevented the normal annual sailing schedule. 7 days later, in the early hours of July 31st, a Category 4 hurricane drove the entire fleet onto the reefs and beaches of what is now Florida's Treasure Coast, the stretch of coastline between present-day Sebastian and Fort Pierce. All 11 ships lost. Over 1,000 dead. Treasure scattered across miles of shallow coastal water. The Spanish mounted immediate salvage operations. Working from the beach, using Indian divers, they recovered a significant portion of the declared cargo over the next several years. What they recovered is documented. What they didn't recover, and what the manifest suggests should have been there, is where it gets interesting. The 1715 Fleet Manifest declares approximately 14 million pesos in silver and gold. Spanish salvagers recovered roughly 5 million pesos before abandoning the operation. 9 million pesos remained on the seabed. In modern terms, adjusted for the current value of silver and gold, that unrecovered declared treasure alone represents hundreds of millions of dollars. But the contraband issue applies here too. Researchers have estimated that the actual cargo exceeded the declared manifest by 30 to 50% based on loading records and comparison with similar fleet operations. Treasure hunters have been working these sites since the 1960s. The Fisher family, Queen's Jewels LLC, and multiple licensed salvage companies pull coins and artifacts from the Treasure Coast regularly, as recently as 2023. What they've found represents a fraction of what the math says is still there. June 8, 1708. The San Jose, a 64-gun Spanish galleon, was sailing from Portobello to Havana, carrying the treasure of the annual Tierra Firme fleet. British warships intercepted. In the engagement, the San Jose's powder magazine detonated. The ship went down in minutes. 600 people died. The treasure went to the bottom of the Caribbean off the coast of Cartagena, Colombia. The estimated cargo, 11 million gold and silver coins, 200 tons of precious metals, emeralds from Colombian mines, jewelry and artifacts. Current estimated value, 17 to 20 billion. The most valuable shipwreck ever identified. Colombia founded in 2015. The location is confirmed. The wreck is sitting at approximately 600 meters depth, deep but reachable with modern ROV technology. Nobody has touched it, because 4 separate parties claim ownership: Colombia, Spain, a US-based salvage company called Sea Search Armada that claims a 1982 discovery agreement, and indigenous Bolivian communities who argue the silver was looted from their ancestors' land. In November 2025, 6 months ago, Colombia recovered the first artifacts: a cannon, 3 coins, a porcelain cup. The full excavation has not begun. The legal framework hasn't been resolved. $20 billion is sitting on the ocean floor, location confirmed, completely untouched, while 4 governments argue about who gets to open it. The Spanish weren't the only colonial power losing treasure at sea. In November 1511, the Portuguese carrack Flor de la Mar sank off the coast of Sumatra. It was carrying the entire treasury of the captured Sultanate of Malacca, one of the wealthiest trading cities in Asia: gold, diamonds, rubies, statues, artifacts representing centuries of accumulated wealth from the spice trade crossroads of Southeast Asia. Estimated value in modern terms, $2.6 billion at conservative calculation. Some estimates go significantly higher. 3 countries claim the wreck: Portugal, Indonesia, and Malaysia. The exact location is disputed. Access to the search area requires navigating territorial waters claimed by multiple governments. It has never been found. This search has been blocked not by depth or technology but by politics. Every serious salvage expedition has been denied permits, had equipment confiscated, or been expelled from territorial waters. The treasure of the wealthiest trading port in 16th century Asia is sitting somewhere in the Strait of Malacca. The location is narrowed to a specific area. The technology to find and recover it exists. 3 governments with competing claims are the only thing between the present and the recovery. The Archive of the Indies contains 43,000 legajos, bundles of documents, 80 million pages, the most comprehensive record of colonial commerce ever assembled. It is largely open to researchers. Historians have spent careers there. But there are gaps. Specific records relating to certain fleet operations that are either missing, damaged, or in categories that remain restricted. The archive's own catalog acknowledges lacunae, holes in the record, at specific periods corresponding to the most significant treasure movements. Spanish historian researchers have documented that the Royal Fifth Collection records show systematic underreporting across the entire colonial period. The gap between mine production records, held in separate archives in South America, and the Casa de Contratación intake records in Seville runs to hundreds of tons of silver over the full 300 years. Where did it go? Some to corruption, some to private hoards in the colonies, some onto ships that went down. The smuggling was so systematic that it was essentially an alternative economy running parallel to the official one. Merchants, ship captains, colonial administrators, and even crown officials participated. When those ships sank, and hundreds did, they took both economies with them. The declared treasure is documented. The undeclared treasure is estimated. The total sitting on ocean floors across the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Pacific is a number that no institution has ever officially calculated, because calculating it would require admitting the scale of what was never declared. 150,000 metric tons of silver extracted from the Americas over 300 years. Manifests that historians agree significantly understate what was actually loaded. The 1622 fleet, 9 million, declared pesos plus contraband, sitting in the waters off the Florida Keys. The 1715 fleet, scattered along 30 miles of Florida coastline, partially salvaged, majority still on the seabed. The San Jose $20 billion confirmed on the ocean floor off Cartagena, location known, untouched, while 4 governments argue. The Flor de la Mar, $2.6 billion in looted Asian treasure somewhere in the Strait of Malacca, blocked by 3 competing territorial claims. And behind all of it, an archive in Seville with 80 million pages of records and gaps in the catalog at precisely the moments that matter most. The technology to find and recover all of this exists right now. Side-scan sonar, ROV systems, magnetometer arrays that can detect iron cannon through meters of sand. The obstacles are not technical. They are legal and political. Governments sitting on confirmed wreck locations while the treasure rusts. Salvage companies with the technology blocked by jurisdictional disputes. Archives with gaps that nobody officially acknowledges. Somewhere between 50 and 100 billion in documented treasure is sitting on ocean floors around the world right now, confirmed, located, or narrowly estimated. And none of the governments involved have any financial incentive to let anyone bring it up. Drop a comment. Which of these is the one that gets found first? Because the San Jose is already being excavated. The race to the biggest treasure haul in history just started. Next week on Dead Man's Secrets, James Forrestal, America's first Secretary of Defense, warned about UFOs and Soviet infiltration for years, committed against his will, fell from a 16th floor window at Bethesda Naval Hospital. The official verdict, suicide. The timeline says otherwise. Subscribe. I'll see you there.